председатель Арктического совета Athabaskan Гарри Харрисон. Пожалуйста.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, ministers, Indigenous leaders of the Arctic. I would like to begin by thanking Russia for showing leadership over the past 2 years in the important work of the Arctic Council. I would also like to thank Governor Yuri Nikolaev, Chairman of the Yamal Organizing Committee, for providing us with such an amazing hospitality over the course of our stay. Over the past 10 years, the work by the Arctic Council, much has been accomplished, but much also remains to be done and done urgently. Those of us that live in the Arctic know that changes are taking place at an unprecedented rate and alarming rate. Climate change presents unique challenges in the north. Of particular importance is adaptation. Arctic Council member communities currently participate in a mixed economy supported by the wage economy, but still largely dependent on traditional gathering lifestyles to both fulfill economic and cultural needs. Adaptation should ensure the continued sustainability of Indigenous livelihoods, societies, and cultures. We note the UNESCO Arctic Indigenous Leaders Declaration to COP11, which urges all nations to develop important adaptation strategies for the effects of climate change. The 8 nation states of the Arctic Council also made a joint statement to focus on global communities' attention on serious problems faced in the Arctic with respect to global climate change, dramatic impacts on the Arctic. We look to the Norwegian chairmanship to provide leadership in this direction. We welcome the 4-year assessment on biodiversity and look forward to being active participants. One thing I wish to particularly highlight is that we need more sustainable economic development and sustainable energy development. Arctic Athabaskan Council was particularly pleased to host the 4th Arctic Leaders Summit on the impacts of global warming and oil and gas development in Hay River in the Northwest Territories, Canada, December 2005. The Leaders Summit recommends including the development of a report on national best practices in oil and gas development in the Arctic. The impact of industrialization on the cultural integrity of Indigenous communities, the changed economic base and its impact on cultural patterns and activities, and the problems of colonization, assimilation, and issues regarding to cultural identity will need to be addressed as resource extraction increases. We look forward to the coming hydrocarbon assessment and will pay special attention to the social economic impacts chapter. AAC will actively participate in the Arctic Energy Summit and opportunities that may be presented in the area, environmental friendly technologies. Another priority for AAC is the recognition of traditional knowledge as a form of quantitative science. We will implement a recognition mechanism through our partnership with the University of the Arctic. As I noted earlier, there has been much progress in the past 10 years in many areas. However, we failed to make progress in one of the Arctic states in particular, the area of collective rights as Indigenous people. The international consensus supports these collective rights of Indigenous people, and we would dearly like the United States to join the other Arctic states and Indigenous peoples in this consensus. We note the U.S. has accepted Indigenous rights in other fora, such as the Convention of Civil and Political Rights, Article 1 and 27 in the Covenant, and the U.S. signed that. In the latest conclusion observations from the United Nations Human Rights Committee on the Convention, the committee states that the U.S. party should review its policies towards Indigenous peoples as regarding the extinguishment of Aboriginal rights on the basis of plenary power of Congress regarding Indian affairs and grant them the same degree of judicial protection that is available to the non-Indigenous populations. It should take further steps in order to secure the rights of all Indigenous peoples under Article 1 and 27 of the Covenant, to give them greater influence in decision-making affecting their natural environment and their means of subsistence as well as their own culture. We also note that the United States is inconsistent in the acceptance of the use of the term peoples in the international fora. Since the term was accepted in the World Summit on Sustainable Development in Johannesburg in 2002, we invite the United States to join the international consensus to accept our rights as defined by international law and as our status as peoples. Mr. Chairman, the Arctic Athabaskan Council firmly believes that such unity of purpose would greatly assist the important work of the Arctic Council as we approach the next 2 years under the Norwegian chairmanship. Thank you very much.
Я благодарю господина Харрисона и предоставляю слово